Peace, peace. Hopefully, I can be heard. So, can I be heard? All right. So, check, check. Can I be heard? Just want anybody to just verify for me that I can be heard. Cause I'm gonna jump. Oh, Babylon done. Appreciate it. He said, "Yeah, you can hear me." All right. So I just want to jump into a quick conversation. Not too long. It's already late. It's two a.m. on the East Coast here in the United States, lovely state of Georgia. Um, I'm just doing a quick recap follow up because I just left the Pseudo Killers channel with Sosa, King Sosa hosting a panel and everything. And they, it ended. It was very long, so it ended and everything. I'm just over here wanted to do a quick recap, follow up, and things like that based on other conversations. So I know a couple of people in the chat um, said they didn't mind going, if we went live. So I'm live. So here I am. So I can see the chat. We're going to chat it up a bit. All right. So just a quick recap. Walking from the last conversation backwards, as far as my participation in the conversation. So we had a conversation about. We had a very long conversation on Egypt being a black land and what did that mean? What did the black land mean and stuff like that? Um, we had a couple of conversations about some glyphs and things like that. And we also spoke about a little bit about linguistics, about language phyla, and some things like that. We talked about riparian a little bit. Um, and so because a lot of people were talking on the panel like that, I prefer I prefer to leave conversations knowing definitively what points are agreed upon that everybody's in sync with, and then what points that there's a disagreement on. Like I like for things like that to be crystal clear because I think that's the only way that progress can be made in conversations. I'm not saying everybody has to agree or everybody has to disagree. It could be one or the other, but I think that each point needs to be come together as a summary and say, okay, this point, so and so agrees, but so and so disagrees, and establish that, then move on to the next topic or next point. That's how, you know, progress can be made in conversations. But when sometimes when it's a lot of people trying to get their voice heard, trying to be heard and get their point across, we don't go back and give that summary for each point, and they blur and they get crossed, the hairs get crossed and things like that. All right. So I wish that we could have, but I understand the stream was very long, and it's already 2 a.m, and I don't even know what time they started, but it's very long. So I understand they got to end it, and then you got a lot of people like me. I'm definitely a long-winded person. People nickname me MC Iron Lung, and I've definitely accepted that because that's exactly I am long-winded, um, and that's just me. And I'm unapologetically long-winded because I think that it takes it's part of explaining and teaching. You can't, I'm against microwaving anything, especially when you're serious. When and if we just joking and entertaining, then yeah, we could say whatever, do whatever, and ha ha he he all night. That's fine. But if you're actually trying to gain an effective outcome of something, you have to make sure that everything is understood and everybody's in sync every step of the way. You don't want to lose anybody, and you don't want to be misconstrued and or misunderstood. So you got to verify. That's just part of teaching. Period. So anyway, I'm checking out the chat. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Yep, Miss Tiffany. Appreciate the invite by Sosa and everybody. And it was good. It was good. And I think Unc was on good behavior. I think that's what Tiffany said. Unc was doing very well. But I've been missing in action, so I'm coming back, visiting people's channels, trying to catch up on videos and stuff like that. And I gave my rant about my opinion about the conflict community and stuff, so I don't have to get into that. But anyway, so what's good? What is everybody dealing with tonight? Where, as far as the chat, I'm looking at the chat now. Were you there for the previous conversation? Were you not? Do you have any questions or concern about anything that was said earlier today on my part? Because I can only speak for myself. Or do you have any questions, period, that you feel that should be addressed to me? So I'm here, taking on any questions. And before I go on, I think Emiket is ready to greet everybody. So Emiket, if you're there, want to greet everybody?
Yes, Dua. Yes, Hobotep a bet, and I know it's late, so we are going to keep it concise and just whatever questions y'all got. I know there was a lot going on, a lot of points that were raised in the other discussion that maybe some might be, it's a lot, so we need to clear up a few things maybe. But we'll see what y'all got first.
Okay. So listen. So I'm looking for any questions or things that you all have in the chat, and I'll try to do my best to address it, whether it's from the earlier conversation or just something you feel that you want to address to me or Emiket. Okay. So while you all are typing that, I do want to do a very quick recap of the points, some of the points that I was trying to make tonight, or that I've made tonight. One point early on in the conversation was that I wanted to make everybody aware that out of all these conversations for the past 6 years, it's been since 2018, but especially since I've been MIA or on a hiatus. I took a break from social media, period. Especially since that time. There's been different conversations that have been blended and mixed together, like they put several different conversations in a blender and blended them all together to conflate these issues concerning ancient Egypt. So you have a conversation. So let me just tell you all. Myself, Asar Imhotep, and the brother Sanjeti, together we coined our name as the Shemsu Heru Research Team. Okay, that's us three. Together, we came together to chime in on an ongoing investigation that Asar has been doing. So there's an investigation that Asar started, I think, as far back as 2002. Now, he can correct me if I'm wrong or whatever, but he has it. He wrote a 2023 publication called Race and Identity in Ancient Egypt, Volume 1. And in his introduction, he clearly lays all of this stuff out, even in our collective essay book from 2019. So he started an investigative research endeavor on the word Kemet, place name Kemet. We jump in and join him in that investigation way after that, 2002. So, in speaking for myself, my concentration or my contribution, my contribution to the investigation has been grounded in ancient Egyptian writing system and grammar. That's my main focus and what I deal with and what I teach. I've been teaching the language for over 10 years. All right. And I'm actually getting ready to publish, not getting ready very soon, but I am going to be publishing a full-on Egyptian grammar. All right. I'm long overdue to have it done, but I'm definitely going to get it done. So Sanjetti's contribution, what Sanjetti, what I see Sanjetti's, not his only focus, and same for me. We have a lot of overlapping, but a lot of leaning on Sanjetti for Sanjetti's focus on philology, Egyptian texts. Okay, Sanjetti, if anybody knows Sanjetti, Sanjetti's familiar with the ancient Egyptian texts more so than myself and Asari Imhotep. In terms of you can be looking for a certain storyline or a certain event from a text, and Sanjetti be like, oh well, that's in this text, that's in the Maxims of Ptahhotep, or that's in the story of Tale of Senuhe, or the tale of the eloquent farmer or peasant, or whatever. Sanjetti's definitely the one to lean on for things like that. My people lean on me for the grammar and the writing system and the grammar, the details of the language. Asari Imhotep, now mind you, we all have overlapping and all this stuff too, but Asari Imhotep is very focused, strong in historical comparative linguistics. All right. But like I said, we all overlap in all these areas. Asar deals with text, I deal with text. Asar deals with the language, Sanjetti deals with the language, and all this other kind of stuff. So now I'm saying all of this to say that our focus, which is clearly shown as the title of our essay, has been to contribute to the debate on the meaning of the place name Kemet. So at all times, we made it very clear that our conversation has been on determining the etymology of the place name Kemet. But what you have in the conflict community, people are talking about other things other than the place name. But the impression is given is that they're arguing against our research investigation. So you have people that are not even talking about the place name. And by the way, place name is toponym. So if you hear us say toponym, same thing. You have people who are not even talking about the toponym, but it's made to seem like they're arguing or debating against us who are talking about the toponym. We are talking about the toponym. And that's what we're focused on. So a lot of that's going on, and it's confusing people. Now, like I said, I've been MIA for over a year and a half. So a lot of things just spiraled out of control as far as I'm concerned. But it's unfortunate that a lot of people are confused about this. But people are made to choose quote unquote sides, thinking that people are arguing against each other. We're not arguing about whether or not the ancient Egyptians had a word for the color black, and that word is Kim. We're not arguing anything about that. We're not arguing whether and I've gone over this. We got slides. We did presentations on this. We're not arguing whether the Egyptians in text are referred to as the cattle of Ra. Or we're not arguing whether the ancient Egyptians or any other people for that matter, that there aren't associations with different animals such as ibis birds, such as falcons, such as bulls, such as sheep, such as oxen, such as what else? Cows, and so on and so forth. We're not dealing with any of that. But there's a lot of people that bring those kind of things up in a conversation, giving the appearance that they're arguing against our investigation about the etymological meaning of the place name Kemet. And we explained this a long time ago. I'm just recapping, I feel the reason why, or a reason why that happens, I'm not saying people do this like pre-planned, intentional like that, but I strongly feel the reason why this happens is because people who are not equipped to join in on the investigation, because you have to have a certain skill set to jump in on the investigation. You have to be grounded in a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And the people who are not grounded in a little bit of this and a little bit of that, they have to deal with it from where they are. And so people who do that, they tend to take the conversation and uplift it and pull it towards them instead of leaving where it is and come join in where it is. That happens with a whole lot of stuff. And I know growing up, a lot of y'all probably experienced that with different people, where you're having a fiery conversation with somebody and you talk about one thing, and then here comes the Johnny come lately into the conversation, and they try to bring the conversation into the realm of what they know, because they don't know enough about what it is you're really talking about. So they have to curve the conversation into the realm of things that they know, so they could be relevant to the conversation. I feel that that's happened a lot in the conflict community. People don't realize that our research question is a linguistic question, and it involves tools of linguistics, it involves tools of science, it involves tools of mathematics. All right, so I want everybody to understand that. And so that was a point I made earlier today. But then I was asked about and I don't want to miss anybody's question. I'm just kind of rambling right now, talking just until I see enough questions in the chat, whether it's from earlier or fresh questions now. So I was asked about Kemet. So what we have explained is that there's two primary hypotheses on the etymological meaning of the place name Kemet. One hypothesis is that the etymology of the word, or that the word means black land, and the etymology of it is from the adjective black. The other hypothesis is that the word means black people, and the etymology is from the adjective black. So both hypotheses, although the outcome is different, the etymologies for both hypotheses both say that the etymology of the word Kemet in both instances is the adjective for the color black. So what Asar did prior to even me and Sanjetti jumping on board with this investigation was he challenged that and questioned it. And he wanted to see, how did this etymological meaning, how did this come about? And based on his research, he hasn't found any work that was done, linguistic work. When people say they want, what would be considered a demonstration, what would be considered evidence, the evidence has to be a, like how you trace out the etymology of any word, which involves different aspects of linguistic skills and tools in linguistics. That was not found, which brought Asar to the point of, or the conclusion that it was never done. That this is an acquiesced conclusion or assumption that has been reigning supreme in Egyptology for a very long time. And so that's when the investigation started. So because Asar deals with historical comparative linguistics, he's using those tools to actually put together and do the work for that. All right. So that's a little background on Asar and the push and the advocacy. Now, out of the two hypotheses, what we did was we ruled out the second hypothesis of Kemet meaning black people. the place name Kemet meaning black people. That should have been a quick thing, because toponyms never refer to people. The word toponym means place name. It refers to places. That's why they're called toponyms or place names. They never refer to people. Place names never, ever, ever, ever refer to people. The referent is never people. Okay? So we ruled out the kingdom's name of Kemet referring to people. Just that is just that easy. But we didn't want to just leave it there. We dove into it more, which is what we wrote about on that end. Now, when it comes to the first hypothesis, black land, by the way, the second hypothesis of black people is rooted in Cheikh Diop's publications. All right. The hypothesis 1 is pretty much everybody else. Every other Egyptologist is in hypothesis 1. Hypothesis 2 is really Diop. Okay. But we ruled that one out. But in us ruling it out, people got offended, because in ruling that out, we're showing how Diop is wrong, and people got offended that we're showing how Diop is wrong. So the pushback is, we're not qualified. We can't hold a light to Diop's accomplishments and so on and so forth. We can't even tie Diop's shoes. I heard a whole lot of stuff. How dare us to challenge Diop, or why are we trying so hard to discredit Diop? You know, all these other different things. So then that forced us to use Diop's words, his own words, where he told people to do what we're doing. All right. So we showed that. And from there, people are trying to prove Diop right. All right. And so that's part of the conversation. That's where you get this whole black people, black skin, and all that other kind of stuff. Then on the whole other thing, it's the black land conversation. But both of those, remember, it's the assumption that the Kem in Kemet means black, is the word for black. Now, why is this even relevant, or why is this even a question, is because what some people do not know is that the way that we transliterate ancient Egyptian words and even pronounce them, it produces a lot of homophones or homographs. All right? Words that are spelled alike, but they're not the same word, totally different meanings. And then homophones, words that sound alike, even though in the ancient Egyptian pronunciations, we're not claiming to pronounce them as the ancient Egyptians did, but in our today's pronunciations, they're identical. So there's a word Kem that means to complete something, to finish it, to complete it, or the end of something, or to fill something. Remember, the word perfect is the word complete. If you look up the English word perfect, its synonym, one of its synonym is the word complete. So there's a word Kem that means perfect, completion, or complete. As a verb, it means to complete, to perfect, to end, etc., etc. Now, the way I'm saying it, Kem, that's the same way that we would pronounce the adjective that means black. It's also pronounced Kem. Okay? Now, that's just with the sounds. Now, even in the glyphs themselves, there's an identical spelling of the adjective Kem, meaning black, with the word that I said that means to complete or to perfect. They're spelled identically. There's instances where they're spelled identical. Okay? So this raises the question, why is the Kem in Kemet linked to the adjective black and not the possibility of the other Kems? And I only mentioned two, but there's others. Why isn't it that? Like, where is the process of elimination? So when we say stuff like that, now the new pushback is, well, the ancient Egyptians can visually see the soil, and the Nile, when it flooded, it left behind a black silt on its soil, and it made it fertile and everything. So it has to be black. I mean, the word, Kim, it has to be the one for black and everything. That's the pushback on that. And that's always been said. So now, to dig deeper, because we already know that and understand that. But now when you're investigating something, you want to, and scientifically at that, you want to eliminate all possibilities of chance, of error, and et cetera, et cetera. So you can get to the reality of it, the objective truth. So what's interesting in doing this investigation is that the Nile in the ancient Egyptians' culture, and you can read a lot of different texts that will leave you with this impression that the Nile or ancient Egypt as a whole, the geographical territory we know as ancient Egypt, it is made up of two completely different environments, two different experiences to the ancient Egyptians themselves. One environment we know as the delta. The other environment is the valley. And we take it for granted, but these, if you've ever go over to Egypt to visit or to tour, and you were to travel from the south on our map and go in a northern direction towards the Mediterranean, you will understand what I'm saying, that your experience in your environment and everything about it is going to drastically change once you reach a certain point in Egypt. And that's going to be the point of the apex of that triangular shaped delta. All right, as a matter of fact, let me just show this on the map real quick. See if I can show this. Let's see. Do I have it quickly where I can show this? All right, I'll just use this. Do I have it somewhere else? Give me a second. Okay, I'll just show this to show you all what I'm talking about. I need to make it big. Sorry. Okay. Now, if you start down here in the south, way down here in the south, right, where the Nile curves, if you were to travel from down here and go downstream, the Nile flows upwards towards the Mediterranean, right? If you were to sail downstream the Nile and go around its curves and bend, notice how narrow all of this is. Okay, keep on going. How narrow it is. Narrow is still narrow. It's a little more wider than down here, but it's still narrow, relatively speaking. Narrow, narrow, narrow. Then all of a sudden, when you get right here, all of a sudden there's an explosion of a different environment. As you travel down here, all of a sudden you get into flat, very rich vegetation, animal life, and the whole nine down here in this area that we call the delta, this triangular shaped delta. So the Egyptians observed and experienced this drastic difference. And it's because of this drastic difference that they called their place of residence two entities. Entity number one reflected the environment in this triangle called the delta. The Egyptians called this entity, this geographical entity, Ta Mehu. All of the narrow strip that we call the valley, all of this right here is called Ta Shema'u in the Egyptian language. Okay? The meaning of those words, Shema'u carries the meaning of something narrow, and Mehu carries the meaning of something being full, filled, full and filled. And other semantic shadings is something that is submerged, etc. All right, or the bottom of something. In order to be submerged, it's at the bottom. All right, and that reflects this area because it's at sea level. It's in terms of altitude, it is definitely at the bottom. It's alignment with the sea because it empties out in the Mediterranean Sea. All right. Now, what's interesting is that although the Nile deposits fertile silt on its banks, on the valley's banks and things like that, the Egyptians also saw the inundation of the Nile as an act of filling up, like a cup. Because remember, the Nile, when it's not flooded, it has a lip, just like your cup. If you can imagine your coffee cup, at the top it has a rim, it has a lip. And imagine going months and months and your cup is only half full. So for several months you got a coffee cup or a cup of water or coffee and it's only half full. Then at some point in the year, all of a sudden the liquid in the cup starts to rise up to the rim. We consider that phenomena the act of filling. It fills up. And so the Egyptians saw the inundation of the Nile as a phenomenon of filling up the banks, all the way to the banks. It overfloods the banks. It actually overtakes the banks, let alone what takes place down here in the delta. By banks, I'm talking about in the valley. But down here in the delta, it gets even more full. So there is a word, Kim, that reflects that. It's the word that means to complete, to perfect, to fill. So in understanding all of this, it's like, well, wait a minute. Is there or could there have been an association with the area that they lived in as being the filled area, or the area that is affected by the inundation of the Nile? Could that be a possibility? And so as an investigator and doing things scientifically, you have to explore that. You have to be able to explore that. So that's done. I mean, that kind of work that investigation is being done. Then there's the old assumption of it being black. So with those two things combined, a new question also emerges: is could there be, and I don't know why that did that. Could there be a paronymic association between darkness and the presence of water? Could there have been in the ancient times a paronymic association with the two that contributes to the toponym of Kemet? That has to be explored. So remember, this is a scientific endeavor, utilizing the tools of linguistics, the different tools of linguistics, science in terms of evidence, math in terms of logic. And so when we raise these questions based on, linked investigations, once you investigate one thing, it's going to lead to new questions. That's how science works. You try to answer one thing, and in doing so, you walk away with 10 more new questions. And that's how this process works and unfolds. And so and I'm only explaining all this stuff to explain to everybody who's listening, who may watch this video later, the pathway that myself, Asar, Imhotep, and Sanjeti are on. All the other shenanigans, all the other drama, all the other separate conversations made to look like they're arguing against the things that we're dealing with and investigating, all that is really part of the magic show. It ends up confusing people. It ends up fooling people to think one thing when it's not. and it's also done to churn out content for different platforms and YouTube channels. It's content creation. So I just want to clear all of that stuff up on what we're investigating. Now, if everybody had picked up our essay book, everything I just said is said in that book. Okay? I wouldn't need to say what I'm saying. But everybody never got the essay book. It's available on Amazon if you want it. Matter of fact, let me just show you the book I'm talking about, just in case you all don't know which one I'm talking about. I'm talking about this book right here. It's called A Contribution to the Debate on the Meaning of the Place Name Kemet. So when somebody brings up black-skinned people and all this other kind of stuff, just understand that that is not our conversation. If people want to talk about cattles and black herds and all of that, that is not our conversation. We're talking about the kingdom's name, which wasn't named as such until the 11th dynasty. All right? Ancient Egypt was not known as Kemet. The kingdom of ancient Egypt was not known as Kemet until the 11th dynasty. Okay? So we're talking about that one. Any Kemet you find prior to the 11th dynasty was not talking about the entire kingdom. We are aware and we explained that there were multiple Kemets in Kemet. But sometimes that's hard for people to grasp and understand when we say it like that, so we have to explain it. So one such Kemet is the Serapeum, which is near Memphis. Another Kemet is in the apex of the Delta Triangle, in a place which is the 10th nome of Lower Egypt. The main capital there is known as Hut-Heri-Ib, aka Athribis. We explain all of that stuff in the text. We explain it in many videos. So I just wanted to kind of open with all of that, and then see what you guys are saying in the chat, and we can volley back and forth for a little bit. All right. So let's go. And Emika, if you can help me out here, any questions that stick out to you. Now, if you do have a question, just add the Sesh so it can stick out. All right, so I'm just going through, and really I appreciate everybody tuning in this late, but it's Friday. Y'all are hanging out with us, and that's cool. So peace to everybody in the chat. I would do a roll call, but that'll take a lot of time. So just appreciate everybody tuning in. Let's see. I'm trying to see where, if any, okay, so this is the first question that I see scrolling down, like an actual question. It says, could you elaborate when you say it involves mathematics? Okay, sure. Okay, mathematics collectively is the domain of logic. There's a lot of abstractions in mathematics. Numbers are abstract. They're not tangible things. They're abstracts, and they represent concepts. And these concepts are linked in a very logical way. It's the domain of logic. And then science is the domain of evidence. Science is about the collection and the explanation of evidence to support X, Y, and Z. Whereas on the math side, you're dealing with logic premises, logic tables, the validity of an argument, the form of an argument, and so on and so forth. And so this investigation pulls from both of those while using the tools of linguistics, historical comparative linguistics, philology, semantics, pragmatics, even morphology, and phonology. I think I said phonology already. So all these various different things in pursuit of an etymological meaning of something. Okay, that's a diachronic pursuit, by the way. Diachronic meaning that it traverses time. You got the word chronos, chronic for the word time. So it's to look at a word through the timeline, going backwards in time, to find out what was its etymological coining. When you coin a word, at the time a word is coined, it's called a neologism, and the word neo means new, and logism is the word logo. So a new logos, a new word. So when a word is coined in a language for the first time, it's a neologism, and it's a challenge to trace that out, especially dealing with a dead language. And on top of that, a language that did not document its vowels until the onset of Coptic. Okay, so it's a big thing. It's not something that's simple to take. So hopefully I answer your question. That's what I mean by mathematics. It's using the logic aspect of mathematics. All right, and Asar has a video on that, and I don't know the name of it, but I'm sure it's named appropriate. So Babylon done. Why you let them keep saying linguistics is anthropology when the inverse is true? In fact, anthropologists study parts of linguistics which should be explained to the chat. Yeah. See, it's hard to really, because if Babylon done, if you were there the whole time, you know that, one, because I am long winded, and like I said, I accept that. Two, when you have multiple panelists that need to be able to say something, then it becomes restrictive for me to address every single thing the way I want to. So I got to choose what to address and stuff like that. So linguistics and anthropology and stuff like that, just something that I didn't have a chance to address. All right. Keep on going down. Peace to Robert Rand. Robert Rand said, I was wondering if Garfield and Uncle would consult with you and Emicat and Asar for these interviews with Egyptologists, being that this is your field of study. Okay, so Robert Rand, now to their credit, I've been MIA. So I took a hiatus from the conflict community, and I don't even want to be associated with it. But I took a break from all of that. So they, them having these interviews, it was outside of me, being involved. So they wouldn't contact me because I wasn't even around, But now it would be a new question moving forward because I'm here. So if they interview any Egyptologists in the future, then I would say that would be a good question to ask at that point. Okay, so anyway, to their credit, I wasn't around. All right, brother Garfield is in the building. Is in the building. So Garfield's right there. So Garfield can testify to what I'm saying. So them having Egyptologists on their interviewing them, I wasn't around for them to consult with me for anything. So I can't fault anybody for that or anything. All right. Sat 12, the Sesh. Okay, the inundation makes the already dark gray soil look blacker. That's true. So that's true. The present. So let me just elaborate a little bit. And I want everybody to look up paronymy. Okay, because earlier I said a paronymic association. Ancient peoples are known for paronymy when it comes to their language. And this makes perfect sense when you understand that prior to writing, remember, writing is very young in relation to human history. According, in the timeline of human history, writing would be the equivalent of being born like last month. That's how young writing is. Prior to the invention of writing and use of writing, every ancient population of people that had a speech community had to remember all the words in their language that they used. They had to remember the word, the form, the concept that's glued to it, or what we in linguistics we call a sign. They had to remember all these signs in order to effectively communicate with each other. So they had to keep their lexical inventory of words to a minimum to be effective. They can't have like a million words. That would be totally ineffective in terms of to communicate, because that means you got to memorize a million words. So what the tendency was to take existing words and words that sounded alike, or there was a conceptual overlap or association, they merged them. They tend to merge it into one word. Okay, this is lexical inventory, like to keep the inventory down. Lexical efficiency. That's a part of what paronymy results in. Okay, now there is a natural association between wetness and darkness. We all witness it. Anything that is wet tends to be darker than what it would be if it was dry. An example I always give is a t-shirt. Take a red t-shirt that's dry and it's bright red. You dip it in water, you soak it in water, you pull it out. Guess what? It's a dark red now. So there's, in all of human history, there's always been an observable phenomenon of darkness being associated with water. Even rain. Rain was associated with darkness. Why? Because the rain clouds are dark. When the sky gets, it could be daytime. When the sky gets dark, we all say, oh boy, it's about to storm. It's about to come down. If you're having a picnic and the sky gets dark, you're mad as all outdoors because your picnic's about to be ruined. The sky gets dark, then water comes. So I'm saying all this to say that there's always been an association between darkness and water. Always. All right, so I just wanted to address that. Let's keep going down. Now, I'm gonna catch up to the real time chat, but let me know if y'all want the link. If anybody wants to come on the panel real quick, because we're gonna rock out just a little bit, just a little while longer. I'm not gonna stay all night or long. We're not doing that tonight. Okay, but it'd be faster if anybody wants to get on the panel. So let me know and I'll put the link. Okay, this is from Babylon. Distinction from other subfields. While anthropological linguistics is considered a subfield of linguistics, linguistics anthropology is generally considered to be. Oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't able to address all of that on the show. Jehudi Mott, would y'all ain't playing tonight with the big words. Hey, Jehudi, man, listen, you got your work cut out for you, boy. You know, you the video editing king. And you got your work cut out, boy. There's a lot of material that I've been trying to play catch up, watch these videos I've been missing over the past about 2 years. And what I'm seeing, boy, if I had the time and you know the tools that I think you already have, boy, I would have a field day. So I don't know what it would take, Judy. I think you gotta get busy. Let's see. I'm trying to keep on going to the questions. I think I'm catching up to the end. Do y'all y'all let me know if y'all want the link. In your opinion, what percentage would you put on each theory for the pictograph? Kim picture is depicting 1, a heap of charcoal, 2, a crocodile skin or foot, or 3, something else unknown. I would say, first let me say that the consensus, because a lot of people rely on consensus, and this is why in science the consensus doesn't mean anything, and that's just the hard truth. There's a difference between a popular consensus versus a scientific consensus that people don't talk about. But the consensus is that it is part of a crocodile's tail. That's why Gardner put it into the I category, which is amphibious creatures and stuff like that. That's the consensus. Then you have a smaller group of people that will say it's a heap of charcoal because they want to deal with the act of burning something and it being black, right? So they say a heap of charcoal. Then the three, something else unknown. There are a few people investigating and exploring that. Now, so I said all that to say, now me personally, I don't think the jury. I think the jury is still deliberating on it, and me, I'm still deliberating on that. All right. So that's the now. If you ask me, you said what percentage I put on right now, I'm kind of pretty much just even because I'm just looking at the information. I'm looking at all the evidence. See, I'm a scientist. I'm scientific minded at heart. So I try not to form my opinion about things until I'm able to examine it. So once I examine, so right now I'm still in the process of examining any evidence for any three of those scenarios. A lot of people don't even know about the third one. That it could be the end. It's the end of a actual bank, river bank, instead of a charcoal or crocodile skin. Okay, so that what I just said will fall into the third category. And so, like I said again, I'm not convinced on any one of the three just yet. All right, so MK's reminded everybody that linguistics is a tool used in the fields of sociolinguistics and anthropology, computer science and artificial intelligence, psychology and cognitive science, and so much more. All right. Anything else? Man, I'm caught up. So I'm caught up. I guess we can end it or not. And MKat is dropping the links to the videos that I'm mentioning. So SAR's video on logic mathematics, that was I think to the previous person that asked me about that. So she put the link in the chat. So hopefully you can click on it, maybe save it to watch it later. So Sat has a question. Now let me know if y'all want the link. I'll put it. It's kind of dangerous for me to do that because then I'll be here. Y'all gonna compel me to be here all night. That's why I haven't put the link in there. So the question is, the TLA has charcoal for Kim. It's hard to imagine that right angle for a croc. Imagining the right angle for a croc. The charcoal is both black and the end of a burning process completion. That's true that black. This is something I went over years ago. That black and white etymologically have this are coming from the same concept, two ends of the same stick. White being blank, blag. If we look up blag, blank, it has the same etymology as black. Black, blank, bleg, and all that stuff is the same etymology. And both of them have diverted to conceptualize two ends of a single process. One is the ignition of something, which lights up and shines bright. And then as that burning process or combustion process takes place and ends, the object that's being ignited and burned through time turns black. And then the light or brightness part of it diminishes and goes out. And so it's an entire combustion process is what these words are describing. All right. So I just want to speak on that. But as far as the I6, Gardner put it in amphibious, so he's associated with a reptile, which is an alligator. Some people say it's the alligator's foot. Some people say it's the alligator's tail. And then other people say it's charcoal. And then there's other hypotheses. And one of the others that falls in the third category is that it's the end of a riverbank. And those little prickly ends of it is the vegetational shrubbery that grows from a riverbank. All right, but it's more investigation is needed as far as I'm concerned. So I'm not convinced of any of the above just yet. All right, so Babylon Dunn says, what were the three you just named? He said, put the link up. All right, I put the link up there. There's also the association of blackness with death and the afterworld. Yeah. See, okay, this is something else that people have to understand. That colors is a human trait. Humans, we use colors as tools of classification. Okay? We use it as ontological tools of categorization. So we will categorize things based on color associations. Not to say that the object or concept is that color, but we will put it into a category that is labeled as a color. So for example, today, to this very day, we associate anger with the color red, fury with the color red, lustfulness with the color red, danger with the color red. And everything I just named is not literally the color red. Danger is not a thing or an object. Lust is not an object. All right? Fury, anger is not an object. So they're not literally the color red, but they're associated with the color red. That's what's in our modern society's psyche. That's what we conceptualize today. I could do that for green. We could do the same thing for blue. So I say that to say that in ancient Egypt, just like all human beings, there are color associations, not literal associations, but they're figurative associations. So the ancient Egyptians figuratively associated black with death, with the afterlife, with divinity, with fertility, with what's another one? Resurrection or regeneration, and things like that. Not that these associations are literal, but they're associated with that. All right, because somebody could die or get murdered in the broad daylight, and that's death. But death is associated with dark, with blackness. But here it is daytime, and you're looking at somebody who's passed away on the ground in the daytime. But so there's figurative associations, and why they're figuratively associated is another topic of discussion. But there's associations with colors. And that's what everybody has to understand. That, all right. Blue, green. Blue is in the ancient Egyptian mind. Blue is associated with expansiveness, and that should naturally come from the sky, because the sky seems to go on for an endless amount of space. Same thing with bodies of water. Some people may associate blue with water, the ocean. If you're in the middle of the ocean in a ship, you don't see any land. And so the water seems like it goes on forever and ever. So it represents the concept of expansiveness. This flowy, permeating thing. So you have the deity Amen, who's often painted blue, because Amen, as the word is often translated as hidden one, it's better to translate it as the concept of imperceivability, the imperceivable one, and that concept traverses endlessly. So he's associated with the color blue. The deity Wasir is associated with the color green and the color black for their associative value. So green is associated with vegetation, rebirth, growth, and all of that good stuff. And then the black part is associated with death, divinity, the absence of light, which is the duat. And there's text that explain that Asar himself is the duat. All right. So there's that. Johudi Ma'at, how have Egyptologists ruled out Kim meaning complete as far as the land completing a process to become fertile for life to grow? Yeah, they haven't done the work to to kind of explore these things. It's been a long running assumption that Kim just means black, and that's just been accepted. And what's interesting is that people who are not directly studying ancient Egypt, they don't understand the kind of scholarship being done related to ancient Egypt. And by that I mean, for example, Egyptology started in what year? Can anybody in the chat tell me when did Egyptology first get its birth as a discipline? Can anybody tell me? Anybody? When did Egyptology start? Let's see if anybody's up on it. Can anybody tell me?
Yo, better ask ChatGPT.
Yeah, that's another thing. I came back, online, and I realized that ChatGPT is the new god, boy. They've retired Wikipedia, and now it is ChatGPT. Okay, so Jehudi, right? So Kevin and Jehudi, you all are right there in the ballpark. Now, my point is, it's in the early 1800s, just to give some wiggle room. My point is that Egyptology begins in the early 1800s, and here we are in 2024. Now, there are scholars to this very day that are taking Egyptian words, for example, that have been known among Egyptologists for all this time, but there are scholars that are taking known Egyptian words and re-examining them and trying to trace out their etymological meanings to this day. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because people who don't really focus on studying ancient Egypt and all this stuff, people don't know that this what's going on. So when somebody like Asar Imhotep raises the etymology question about the place named Kemet, it seems odd to people who don't study at this level of focus. You got people who know different things about ancient Egypt, but people who really, really study it, it's not odd. It's perfectly normal, and it happens all the time. I've read a 200-page paper that the whole paper is about one word, one Egyptian word. It took 200 pages for a person to discuss one Egyptian word. That's a word that is already known. I mean, it's already in the dictionaries and everything. And you would ask the question, why? What would make this scholar crazy enough to do a 200-page paper on a word that's already in dictionaries? It's already in dictionaries, so We already know what it means. Why would he do that? See, it's that kind of thinking that only comes from people who don't actually do, they're not in this. And I get it, I get it. That's what happens. But we have to just understand that's what happens. So this is not something odd. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give you an example. There is, this is probably not the best example at all, but I'm just going to give you an example of what I'm talking about that you all can probably understand what I'm saying. I mean, get what I'm saying, because y'all probably have seen this before. The deity Satuk, or Set, there's an ongoing debate since Egyptology started up until today on what animal does Satuk represent. Is Satuk an aardvark? Is it a type of extinct canine that used to exist in Egypt? Is he an amalgam of different animals, a cross between a pig and a anteater and a aardvark and a dog and whatever? I mean, this has been going on for a long time. Even though we have statues of Satuk, we got plenty of writings with Satuk mentioning it. We got carvings of Satuk on walls and everything. So you would think with all that we would have figured it out by now. But it's not. And I'm only bringing that type of example up because scientific research is always an ongoing thing. And what some people realize is that there's been a lot of assumptions on a lot of things, not just in Egyptology, but in a lot of areas. There's been a lot of assumptions made. And in science, especially in math, you never acquiesce to a faulty premise. You have to make sure your premise is sound. Because if your premise is based on assumptions, then everything that proceeds forward from the premise is going to be questionable. And it's a very likely chance that your conclusions are going to be wrong because your premise wasn't built on a solid ground first. And a lot of disciplines did that early on. You got to understand, a lot of these disciplines, such as psychology, such as biology, such as Egyptology, such as Assyriology, all the different ologies out there, they have a starting point. And when these disciplines started, they didn't have access to the technology we got today, to the modes of communication we have today, to the crossbreeding of other disciplines, anything like that. So these disciplines started off with a lot of assumptions. That's why even in science there was scientific racism that was used. Something that sounds scientific, but they used it, a weaponized science, to use it against one group of people, use it against another. So a lot of these disciplines get their early starts in shaky ground. And Egyptology is no different. All these words you find in dictionaries, all of those words need to be checked on. Just because you find in a dictionary, you have to find out who wrote the dictionary. How did they come to the conclusion that this word should be translated into English as this? Now, nobody's going to do that because that's a lot of work if somebody had to do that. So you're just going to use the dictionary and take it on face value. Say, okay, this dictionary says this word means that, then it is what it is. And it's effective, it's efficient to do that. But when you have to further investigate something, you can't rely on it that way. And it happens in dictionaries. Have y'all ever wondered why there's so many different Egyptian dictionaries? you would think that there would be only one Egyptian dictionary, and that everything else is an improvement of that one, or an expansion of that one. But that's not how it works. You have different schools of Egyptology that will produce their own dictionaries because of the work that they've done in that particular school of Egyptology. You have the German Wörterbuch. Book. That's the most exhaustive dictionary we have to date. You have Raymond Faulkner's dictionary. You have E.A. Wallace Budge's dictionary. You have Dickerson's dictionary, Mark Weige's dictionary, and you have dictionaries in other languages, including French and I believe Dutch, and so on. My point, though, is that why is there a need to have, even in English, you got the Merriam-Webster dictionary, you have the Oxford dictionary, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That alone should tell you that, wait a minute, why is that? Like what does sense does that make to have multiple dictionaries? Why can't it just be one dictionary publication that's constantly updated if it needs to be? So dictionaries are not the end all be all. They never were, and they should never have been taken that way. They're tools. They're tools. They're tools. They're tools. They're not answers. They're tools. All right, they're tools.
Yeah, and I think most people forget that even with the Egyptian words that we find in the dictionaries, they're not set in stone, as in not all the words are the way that like are translated correctly, and Egyptologists themselves do walk through them. I remember when we were going through the Egyptian ancient Egyptian administration book, and then you realize that even certain words that we translate, I forget, I might be wrong right now, but because it's been a while since I've read it, but I think it was actually the translation for what a nomad is, that even within the same book, you had opposing views of what that actually means by different experts, and obviously because of how the word nomad has been used in modern times and then transplanted into what we know of the ancient Egyptians uh, culture and things like that. So there was, I think, contention on whether between that word and the mayor and whatnot, and what a nomad really is. But I think that's something I'll go back to once we get go back to the book, just to be clear on it. But within that book itself, you had opposing views on the translation of a particular word, a title that is, and that is something that Egyptologists work on that, and it doesn't mean that all the words that we have now have been worked and set in stone for us. So we know that this is ongoing work. So that is something that people outside of learning this language and culture might not be aware of. So they just understand that because you find the word in a dictionary and it says so, then that is what it is. But within the field itself, people are still working on the root of those words and the meaning behind them.
Okay, excellent. So, in keeping with what you just said, I want to show everybody this, something that I have not heard people bring up in conversations. Okay, so I want to share this with you all. Not to say that I'm the only or first person to point this out, but I just haven't seen it pointed out. When it comes to dictionaries, I want everybody to be aware of something, and what I want to point out is the way that these words are transliterated. Okay, and I'm going to show you. I'm just going to pick something random, so I'm just going to flip. I'm just going to scroll until it just stops. Right. Let me see if I could just find something. Okay, so let's do this one. Okay, let's just look at this one real quick. This is random. Just totally random, y'all. And we're gonna do a couple of these. So let's take this word right here. If you look at the glyphs for this word, the transliteration does not match exactly what the glyphs are showing. And if you don't know how the writing system works, and if you haven't studied the language at least at the basic level, you're not going to know this. You're not going to recognize this. All right. So for example, the M3, which is a twig, it represents two consonants. And those two consonants, if we were to type it in manual decodage transliteration system, would be an X and a T. Now, this transliteration system you're looking at is a diacritic system where you see letters and you see these diacritic marks above, below, etc., etc. So you see the H with the curve under it. And these diacritic marks, by the way, they all have names. The names escape me right now, so I'm just going to say curve, and H with a curve under it. That's what this is. So it starts with an H with a curve under it, and then a T, then a Y, and U. Now, so the X or the H with the curve represents this glyph here, which is AA1 or J1 in this dictionary. It represents a monoliteral, and it's transliterated as the H with the curve or X. Then you have the bread loaf, which is X1, which is transliterated as with the letter T. So you have the biliteral XT, and then the bread loaf, then the placenta, they call it placenta, and the bread loaf. So in this word, these two glyphs would be considered as phonetic complements to the biliteral. In other words, it takes the biliteral and spells it all the way out. So you have XT, XT. All right. So that's understood. That's what most people would understand. This bird here, which is G4, we call it the TU bird, but it's a kind of bird, and it represents the consonants T, Y, W all by itself. So if these first three glyphs represent the X and the T, then why isn't there another T added on to represent the TU bird? The T, Y, W. And then we have another bread loaf here, which is another X1, which is another T. So why isn't there another T on here? Now we understand a determinative or classifier, which is the N23 and the single logographic stroke. But all the other ones, they're not represented here in the transliteration. So what you see and what is transliterated are different. Okay, it's different. Now I just did a random one. Let's go to another one. Let me go to another random one. Let me get out of that section and go further up somewhere. Let's see. Let's take something. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, but no, by the way, I was gonna say that if you're very strict with the classifier, like how James had a page that was showing that N23, that would have thrown him off on that particular word we were looking at too. So that's why, that would have messed him up real bad.
Yep. Okay, here's another example. Mind you, I'm just scrolling, just stopping at random places, okay? Here's another one. So we have Gardner code L1, which is a scarab beetle. It represents three consonants. In manual decodage system, we would transliterate that with three consonants, X, P, and R. But here you see it as the H with the curve under it again. That's the diacritic version of an X, and then the P and the R. But now here we have an open mouth, which is D21. That alone is transliterated as an R. Now we would understand this R or mouth to be a phonetic complement to the beetle, and we would not transliterate that. We would not express that. So this would represent the R in the triliteral, which is Kepler. But the question is, why isn't the reed leaf, which is M17, transliterated? Why isn't this an I? And we normally transliterate this with the letter I. or depending on if you're in a German school, the letter J. But it's not here. Why doesn't this say Keperi like this one does? You see how this one says Keperi? This one doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So why? And this would throw people off. Now I want you to notice that this one says Keperi. Oops, this one says Keperi. And this is assuming that this R is a phonetic complement, which is why you don't see two R's there. But guess what? This one has two R's. So it's saying Keperer. And it omitted the I, the reed leaf. Okay? So now what am I getting at? The takeaway here, my point is, because I don't want to make it long. My point here is that although these dictionaries are accessible to anyone and everyone, a lot of people who use these dictionaries really don't know the full scope of how to use them effectively and what they're actually looking at and things. So people will look at this and say, they will try to debate you on something like this or what have you, or argue with you up and down about something in a dictionary, and they will use the dictionary as the litmus or the end all be all. And remember my statement earlier, a dictionary is simply a tool. It is not the answer. It is a tool. And we all need them and we all use them, but it's a tool. And I can keep on going, but I think that's enough. I just randomly stopped at a few. Y'all could call off a word. Call off a word y'all want me to look up. So anybody in the chat, just type a word in English that you want me to look up an Egyptian equivalent to it. Just call something off. Now, while y'all do that, let me show you all what I was talking about before. Okay, I'm going to go to the N. So we in J's, let me go down to the N. Okay, here we are, N. Let's go up a bit. All right, right here. Now, I want everybody to pay close attention to this word right here. As an example. All right, this word is the word ta. It means land. Earth, according to this dictionary, they're translating it as either earth or land or ground or dirt that's under the fingernails. They put that in parentheses. That's what ta is. But this is the point I made earlier today, is that the very word for land, because everybody says ta means land, even without looking at a dictionary, everybody assumes that, they'll say ta means land, ta means land. But now I want y'all to understand that this word ta is spelled with the N16, which is a flat strip of land, but it has a determinative on here because the word ta is just the strip of land, the T and the capital A, or the diacritic 3 right here. That represents N16 by itself. So the determinative is not transliterated. The determinative is N23. And N23 represents a class for canal or irrigation associated with water. So the point I was making earlier today was even the concept of land to the Egyptians was still associated with water. And y'all can see it in its representation of how it's spelled by its classifier. Classifier. All right? Just want everybody to notice that. And let's look at this one for island. This is the same spelling with the exception, instead of N23, which is the irrigation glyph, it has a tongue of land, which is N21, a tongue of land. This word translated as U. They pronounce it U, the I as a like a Y, U, and it means island. Island. They say it, translates to island. Now I want y'all to see this word here, Tawi. That's a masculine dual now. It takes ta and it dualizes it. Now we get Tawi, two lands. But look at how it's spelled. There's two N23s here. One to match each of the N16s. Tawi. So even the name of Egypt, remember, Tawi was the ancient name of Egypt. Actually, the name of Egypt throughout its entire history. Before it was even called Kemet, it was known as Tawi as one of its names. Even in that name, there is an association with water. I hope everybody sees that. There's an
Yeah.
association with water.
What's crazy is that actually, I think, and you said it with just about all the names that we know that are used for Kemet and whatnot, for ancient Egypt, all the different toponyms that we know, like Tameri, Tawi, Henu, and all that, and even Kemet, they have an association with water. Most people don't even know. Like even Tameri itself, even though we say cultivating and land of the whole, the Mary itself, if you actually go to the dictionary, you'll find it. Like it will be the glyph is for Marys. Tamari sometimes will be also associated with the pool and things like that. And even the word Henu itself actually has association with river, streams, and so forth, where there is water. Even in the desert where there is a well and things like that. So all those names that were used at some point of that civilization for the name of the country always have some kind of association with water, and that is something that people actually really really overlook in this discussion.
Exactly. And finally, let me just show this because I'm gonna look at the chat again. These are instances of what you're saying, Tom Mary. So we have four instances in this dictionary of the same word, Tom Mary. They're all being translated in this dictionary as Egypt. So we have Egypt 1, Egypt 2, Egypt 3, Egypt 4. All four of these are spelt slightly differently from each other. One of them, the top one here, is spelled this way, the next one spelled that way, and so on. All right? Now, if you look at it, the last one is spelled with this glyph here, which is N37. N37 is a pool of water. So Egypt, as one of the names of the country, is associated with a pool of water. The word mer or mer is also associated with water. Now there's many mer, just like there's many chems in the language, there's many words that start with mr in the language as well. And now here's the thing. So let me stop sharing this. I want to get back. I want to see y'all in the chat. Here's something that's very interesting that you all may or may not have noticed. All right. In these discussions, remember Asar's original research question was, what is the etymological meaning of the kingdom's name, the place name Kemet? Now, when Asar initiated that investigation, he found data to be lacking in terms of actual work being done to show its etymology. And people in the conflict community has taken that and like, what do you mean? That's crazy. It's in the dictionaries. And, as I already explained before, right? But now check this out. So they find it hard or crazy for Asar to even ask that question. when all the dictionaries are already written and they already say black land, black land, black land, black land, fertile land, whatever, right? But here's what I find strange. When it comes to Tameri, and nobody talks about the word Tameri too much, but when it comes to Tameri, the Egyptological literature that's out there will translate Tameri as the beloved land. And they're assuming that the word mer is the word for love. And let me show you. So let me bring the dictionary back up. So let's go. I'm just going to do a search for the word love. And hopefully I could quickly find something without going through a bunch of stuff. All right, let's go to mer. Here we go. So for those scholars that are translating Tameri or Mary as the beloved land, they're taking the mer in the name to be the mer that means love. Love, want, wish, desire, prefer, covert, cherish, or be loved. So they say it's the beloved land. All right, I want y'all to follow me on this. Let me show y'all a different variation. Here's it with the U6 glyph, which is the ho, the land, the ho. Okay, you see the word mer, it means to love or desire. Like here, to love as a verb. All right, so I want to be clear on this. I want y'all to follow me on this. Here's another one. Mer meaning to love, be loved, etc., etc. Now, there are many mers. There's a mer that means crocodile. There's a mer that means water. There's a mer that means actually hoe, and everything that's associated with water. That has nothing to do with love, but it has everything to do with water. So now, a research question is, what is the etymological meaning of the word Tameri, the place name Tameri? See, nobody's wondering that, one, and two. Nobody's going to say, well, the dictionary say it's beloved land because love. But the same principle apply, that there's an assumption that it's mer meaning love. Why can't it be mer meaning associated with water?
Yeah, like I saw the previous where you were the first mer that you showed, there was also mer itself for canal and things like that. Yeah.
To my here.
Yeah.
So look at these words that deal with water. So you have libation, which is water. We have mer as a canal, artificial lake. Libation is the pouring of water. You even have mer as a word coming from a root that means to tie something. That doesn't have anything to do with water or love. It means to tie something. So meret are people who are associated with tying, which they call weavers, and the weavers happen to be called servants, underlings, and serfs. Okay.
That would also make sense with the mer for friends and things like that. I think I saw that tonight when you were showing something on the other channel.
Yeah, that was closer to this one here, where you have the man and woman and everything.
Yeah.
Bondsman, service, underlings. But that root, see, this root of mer is completely different than the root that means water or love. It comes from a root meaning to tie something. Okay, that's why they say weavers, because weavers tie, they tie string and rope and whatever. So I'm just giving you all an idea of why these questions are asked and the validity of these questions. It's a very valid questions. Why do people translate Tameri as the beloved land? And then you got some scholars that will translate it as the land of inundation. That is what it's supposed to be translated as. The land of inundation, not the beloved land. It doesn't even make sense in the Egyptian cultural landscape, reading the text, why they would call that beloved land. They would definitely have called it the land of inundation, the inundated land, and not the beloved land. Now, the two concepts can merge because the area that was inundated is the area that they desired to live at. and people can connect that together. Okay, it's the land that they love to live at or desired it, but although it's inundated, so therefore the two came together and blah blah blah. Do y'all see this? Y'all see that? So the same thing with the word Kemet. You have the focus on water, or the filling up of the river, the water that produces the riparian, and the riparian, um, the association of wetness and darkness, and so on and so forth. These are the things that people do not discuss and talk about. Everybody wants to try to argue, fuss, and fight, and try to anachronistically retrofit modern social constructs of race and say, nah, it's the chocolate city, or it's representing the black skin, and the fact that they were black people and all this other kind of stuff. All that stuff is just silly. But go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, no, it's actually when you mentioned that, I think because I think you mentioned before that in the the name Kemet for the toponym, and the name Tam Mary actually popped up around the same time. So looking at that, and the definitions that we have for Mary, with having to do with water and things like that, starts to kind of make sense, because these are the kind of questions that you need to ask while having this kind of research question, because clearly there is some relationship between that Tamari and then also Kemet. So the thing is to ask yourself, like, what do they have in common, and what happened during that time that precipitated those names being used. And even I think we even had a little extra tip that we mentioned in another video, where there was during the intermediate period, the first intermediate period, where you had drought and things of that nature. So these are things that people need to look up, like why Tamari and Kemet, what's the relationship between those two, and why at during that period of time those names popped up, what happened before that precipitated that particular name change. And when you have those kind of questions and you dig deeper, it will actually lead you to what you guys are talking about, where it has something to do with water and the riparian.
Yep. Excellent points. And every point that you made just now are things that we've said in previous videos. So remember, we got a video for everything on our channel. But I'm gonna keep going. We only gonna be on for 10 more minutes, y'all. So if y'all got questions, definitely type them in there. All right. But the previous question was, I don't want to ignore DM. Says, what do you think about the word aku? Now, DM, when people ask me questions like that, I have to I always ask people to show me the glyphs, because the word aku, there's many words that are transliterated as that would be transliterated that way that you spelled it. And so I don't know which word that you're actually referring to, so it's very hard to answer that question for anybody. So what I always do is ask people to show me the glyphs, so I'll know exactly which word you're talking about. All right. So, and I'm gonna show you, for instance, because I'm gonna take what you just gave, and I'm gonna use the same dictionary, and I'm gonna search for that word that you had, right? So it's aku. So, now the way I spelled it obviously is gonna give me a bunch of results, but I'm just gonna keep it to the aku that you said. So let's just look for the very word aku itself. So we have akut with a T, that means property. We have aku, that means spirits of the deceased. We have aku, that's a serpent. We have aku, that is sunshine. We have aku, that means power. That it says is translated as power, magic. Aku, power, magic. Again, skills, expertise. Power, magic, magical words. What's another one? Sunlight. Then anyway, I see Arket. I'm gonna keep it with Aku. Here's another one, Aku, with the power of God, mastery. Aku as in field crops. There's an Aku with spirit and personalities. Here's another one for power again. We got one for magical charms. So I'm doing this because I want to emphasize why it's always best to show the glyphs. And I know you in the chat, you can't you can't show the a picture of glyphs in the chat, so I get it. But I just want you to understand why questions like that I can't answer. Nobody can answer that. And if anybody tries to answer it, they could lead you the wrong way. You could be asking about one word, but they answering about a totally different word. All right, so I just wanted to point that out. Didn't want to ignore your question. Where we at? Where's it was set? Had a question. Oh, this one. What do you think about? What do you think of someone using the laws of Ma'at and the wisdom of Ptah as moral code for themselves today, taken as seriously as the Bible laws for Jews and Christians? Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. You asking my personal opinion about somebody that does that? I don't have a problem with that, because as long as they properly understand it and everything, then it's actually a good thing, because the Sabayit, or the instructions or the maxims of Ptah Hotep, if that's what you're talking about, those are some very good maxims in there that build good character. It builds up good character. All right. Ked Nafir, which is the word phrase for good character. Ked being the word for character, and it's also a word Ked that means to build as well. And by the way, Khnum, the deity Khnum, is known as the builder. So one of his epithets is Ked, and he's the one that shapes people's native character in the womb, which is why he's shown in the birthing of, as an example, the birthing of Hatshepsut. He's the one that molds or shapes the character of a person that is placed in the womb by his wife, etc., etc. That's how the story goes. But my opinion, again, I don't have any problem with that, especially if they understand it and use it right. It will produce some good stuff. It builds good character. Yep. If a person, oh wait a minute, Eastern, I don't want to miss Eastern. It says you don't got all the answers, way, so I'm not sure if they're talking to me. English doesn't have one dictionary. That's correct. That's what I was saying. English don't. Okay, so now we have Sat again. If a person has a lot of experience in reading hieroglyphs, which do you think is the most useful second to that? Also hieratic, demotic, or Coptic? Okay, so basically, what I would recommend, if somebody feels that they have a good grasp on the hieroglyphic writing system, I would encourage that person to then go to hieratic, because a lot of texts are written in hieratic on papyri, but they're transcribed into the Sesh Netcher. And just a quick FYI, when you hear me say Sesh Netcher, I'm talking about the formal hieroglyphs. When you hear me say Simplified Sesh Netcher, I'm referring to hieratic. All right? Because the ancient Egyptians didn't really have a word for hieratic out there like that. You had Sesh Netcher and you had Sesh Nishat, which is demotic, or letter writing. Okay, so just to point that out. So we say Sesh Netcher around here. But to answer your question, I would recommend people to move on to hieratic to start getting familiar with that. All right, let's keep going down. East Side Baron says denotation. Excuse me. Denotation is different from connotation. It absolutely is. Have you tried Blue Lotus? Have I tried? Is that a drink? It sounds like a drink. Have you tried Blue Lotus? Go to the bar and ask for Blue Lotus. Now, if you mean looking up Blue Lotus, I don't know what you mean. So maybe you could elaborate on that. A word cannot be defined in isolation of context. That is so true. So listen, in speaking to that, meaning, which is the word semantics, the word semantics itself means meaning. As a discipline, it is the study of meaning. Meaning is the child of context. Context is the mother and father of meaning. That's when you combine semantics and pragmatics together. When you look at a word in isolation itself, if there's ever meanings given for it, those are simply lexical inventory of a particular language, and that's based on statistics and use. And this is what you all should do if you haven't done this already. Look up how words find themselves in dictionaries. In other words, how do words get to become entries inside of dictionaries? Because obviously the dictionaries we hold in our hands today has more words than the dictionaries of 50 years ago. And if you walk your way backwards, the dictionaries are gaining more and more and more and more words. So you should look this up. Find out what criteria is used in order to put a new word in a dictionary. All right? And that will be definitely very informative to you if you do that.
Yeah, because we all remember how and when the word bootylicious entered the dictionary and
Yeah,
all that.
bootylicious. Yep. All these different words. Okay, Seshu, yeah. He said, is it possible that Kemet came about as some kind of reaction to the rise of the Hyksos? Um, no, I don't see any. I don't see any association there. The red people that lived in the land of the white and black crown, located in the riparian zone next to the Deseret area, made sure this is complicated. Everything has got jokes. That's funny though. I'm gonna have to steal that. I'm gonna have to steal that. Um. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up, y'all. This okay. Blue lotus is an Egyptian flower used in ancient times, which has sedative effects and is mildly psychedelic. Oh, so you asking me have I ever tried using it for that reason? Oh, nah. I can tell you that nah. Wujao doesn't play good with any kind of drugs or anything of the like that. No, not at all. But it's actually a lily. Everybody call it a lotus, but it's actually the African lily. I mean, that's really neither here nor there, but that's something to think about. Um, all right. So I guess that's it. So hopefully y'all, got a couple of takeaways tonight between this conversation and the early one if you were there and whatnot. What I was trying to explain to the brother James was, I mean, it got like I don't know what you would call that, because I swear I have an issue with I just don't know. I gotta call it like I said. I just have an issue with you know people just understanding what you say. They hear what they want to hear, but they don't hear what you're actually saying. Like we call that comprehension and stuff like that. And then when I say it, then people get offended and stuff like that. But it's just it is what it is. That's why we have videos, and I replayed the whole comprehension thing. But what I was trying to explain was this. So let me show this on the map. But this will be the last thing. Let me pull up the map. I want to explain this last point here. One of the points I was making tonight. Okay, so let me just do this because I don't want to move this around. All right, y'all can see this on the screen. This is the map I always show, and I've been showing this map since it came out, since it first made its appearance online. And it's a good map to have, so y'all, I would recommend y'all to download it. There's others that are great too, but this one is easily accessible, and I would recommend you download it because it's big and it's clear. All right. Now, one of the points I was making tonight was that Egypt today, as well as in ancient times, was always viewed by its people as a pair of entities. So, geographically speaking and environmentally speaking, the land that was owned by the king and lived in by its citizenry was always seen as two distinct entities that was united under one rule, under one possession. One entity was a flat plain, highly saturated with water, plenty of vegetation, a lot of animals, and different things. That is the delta. That's up here, right here. We call it delta today, but the ancient Egyptians referred to that as the region of inundation, the lowland, the flatland, Ta Mehu, the submerged region. This region here. From the apex of this triangle, if this triangle is an inverted triangle, from the apex tip of this triangle, from this point going down, this area was called the narrow region, aka Ta Shema'u. All right. Both Ta Mehu and Ta Shema'u are both considered Ta We together. That's where we get this whole Tawi. Why it's a duality? Why it's a dual? Because they experience a dual environment. You live up here is different than when you living down here in the narrow part. Your lifestyle and what you experience in your surroundings is going to be different. Okay? Now, so that's one duality, is the delta and the valley. Now, most people will say Lower Egypt and Upper Egypt. Most people are familiar with that. Then there's another pair of entities. There is the entire green area that you see me tracing with my arrow. That entire part right there is one entity. Then this blank, barren area over here and over here is another entity. This area here was referred to as Kemet. The area out here and out here was referred to as Desheret. So we have a second pair of entities in the minds of the ancient Egyptians. All right. Now I'm going to go back to this map here. So having said that, the ancient Egyptians divided their entire possession into roughly 42, for lack of a better word, states. And I'm making an analogy to the United States of America. The United States of America has 50 states. All right. Ancient Egypt, for analogy purposes, had 42 states called nomes. These nomes, if you look, let me scroll up. Over here, this list over here on the right hand side, these are the 20 nomes of Lower Egypt. So all 20 of these nomes are within this triangle. Okay. Upper Egypt. Upper Egypt has 22 nomes, and all of its nomes are located along the narrow points of the valley. You can see nome number 1 right here with a circle. The Upper Egypt nomes, the numbers don't have circles. The Lower Egypt ones have circles. So the first nome of Lower Egypt is right there at the tip of the triangle, and that's Memphis or Mennefer. All right, but it's called the nome of the white walls. Enbu Hedge is the name of this nome, this first nome. Within Enbu Hedge is the major capital of Mennefer. So anyway, my point is that the gnomes, if you look at the glyphs, let me point to a glyph that's bigger so you can see it. All the gnomes end with this glyph right here that I'm pointing to. That's a glyph for the word sapat. And it is an irrigation system. It's across channels of irrigation channels. That's what it is. Therefore, it is associated with what? Water. This is a water sign, or the presence of water. There's an association there. So ancient Egyptians divided their possession into 42 states that are associated with water, because all of the sapats have this symbol at the base of its sign, of its glyphs, as you see here and you see here. And the same thing for those over here. So now, if you follow me on my analogy with the United States, we have 50 states in the United States. They will be closely similar to the gnomes. In each state of the United States, we have cities. We have counties and cities. But let's just stick with the cities. So here in Georgia, I live in Georgia. Georgia is a state. The main, or the capital of Georgia, is Atlanta. Atlanta is a smaller unit within a larger unit of Georgia. We call it a city, the city of Atlanta. But there's many, many cities, but Atlanta is a major city. So in each nome, now mind you, the nome is associated with water. In each nome, you have what people translate as either villages, towns, or cities. And they usually have the 049 glyph associated with them. So to give you an example, even Mennefer, Memphis, is determined or has a classifier of the 049 glyph, as you can see if y'all can see my arrow pointing to it. You could look at Kemnu down here. It has a 049 glyph, but it's within one of these gnomes. They're associated with one of the gnomes. So what I was explaining earlier is that the entire state or gnome is associated with water. Therefore, what's inside of it inherits that association. So, for example, if Georgia was associated with flatland, it's not. But let's say it is. No, let's use Kansas, because Kansas is definitely. I've been to Kansas. It's definitely flat as I don't know what. That's why Tornado Valley is right there. But a state like Kansas is associated with flat land. Then anything in Kansas inherits that association of flat land. So back to Egypt. The gnomes are associated with water via irrigation systems and stuff like that. So everything in it inherits that association. And rightfully so. It should be common sense. Human beings are going to live near sources of water, or where they can access water. If you don't, you'll die. Just plain and simple. So I was explaining that at all times we have to and we cannot ignore the aspect of water in the cultural context of the ancient Egyptians civilization as opposed to black, which is therefore hijacked and associated with skin color just to anachronistically say that the ancient Egyptians are black people, and every city in ancient Egypt is a chocolate city, like how we name DC Chocolate City, or DC is a black city, Chocolate City. Atlanta is a black city because whatever. Chicago, all those associations. That was my point earlier that I was making. That these quote unquote cities inherit the associations with water because the gnomes represents a larger um, entity that encases these cities, and they inherit one another. No different than the Nile itself is the water itself, and then all the sapats are rested up against the Nile. It inherits the water association. Therefore, the cities within the gnomes inherit the water associations. And the very word Ta, as I have just shown, is spelled by the Egyptians themselves with the water association. Okay? So with that, it is definitely late. It's 4 in the morning, and I'm definitely gonna get up off this thing. It's been great. MK, you got anything close up?
Just one last question. I know that Babylon had a question, but so because I haven't typed it yet, so we might have to look at that maybe in the weekend. But somebody else, Leonard Saucer, asked if we have a contact email for this issue.
Yeah. Boy, what was it?
Yeah, I don't remember. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give our Facebook page for now, and then I don't know if Leonard is gonna be there next time we are live, and then we can sort that out, find the email. But I'll put the Facebook link for now, just in case
That's a
you need.
good question. Let me find out what our email is for the Seshu channel. See, we got an email for the channel, obviously, because it's a Google account. Or I can give you or we can give you our
We could get,
email.
yeah, we could give yours
But
for now.
yeah, give the Facebook group, give the group and the page. The group, join the group if you're on Facebook, and
Yep.
subscribe to the page though as well. But what was the other question? I did see another one, didn't I see? It says show Bujao, new 24 hours. Some interesting text and glyphs, left page, PDF, approve and H. Oh, wait, where is it? Did somebody send it?
So what? Oh, okay.
No,
Yeah, yeah. No, Sat asked me to download this. It's a PDF, so I think we're gonna have to go over that. Um,
I'm saying you
I
got the
just
link. You
downloaded
got
it.
the link.
Yeah, yeah. I've downloaded it.
Okay, okay, all right. So
Yeah.
we'll check that out. Um, all right, that's good. So it look like we handled everything. It's late, so we gonna
Oh wait, let's not leave Babylon out. Yeah,
He
that
said
that is it.
we see the duality of Kemet and Deshret, thus duality of two lands, Tawi or Tawiu, thus unified as Ta Kemet, the Kemet, Ta Kemet, or Kem Ta. Okay. Oh, that wasn't a question. That was a statement.
Yeah, so maybe because Babylon wanted to join the panel, but since we were closing down, so maybe
Oh
in this
yeah,
weekend
nah, we ain't doing that.
when
We'll
you
we'll go
open the
live again.
panel,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
then we could definitely have a conversation because the question is probably more in depth that needs just the panel.
Okay, cool. But no, it's not Kim Ta or anything like that though. I just want to make sure everybody. I don't want to confuse anybody. It's not. It's not Kim Ta or anything of that. All right. And Ta Kemet in the New Kingdom, Ta is a definite article. It's not the word land. And then there's no Tawi U. It's Tau, the plural of it, but the dual is Tawi, and then you got Tau. So yeah, you got those. There are two Kemets. No, there are many Kemets. And that's the question I asked James because James showed a text that had Kemet pluralized and Deshret pluralized. and which shows that there are many Kemets. And I would just give y'all two of them. There's the Serapeum, and then there's Athribis. All right, the Serapeum and the Athribis. All right, so with that, we are definitely going. It says Kemet plus Deshret equal Kemet. Yeah, Babylon done to that question. Yes. In 11th dynasty, they see. Remember, Kemet and Deshret equals the king's possession. The king ruled Kemet and Deshret. In 11th dynasty, they started to call that possession Kemet. So they used the name of one for the name of the whole. And it's no different than how everybody does it, even in the United States. Like Atlanta, I don't live in Atlanta, but I tell people I'm in Atlanta because Atlanta is the dominant thing that people would know about. So I'm using Atlanta for the whole, even though Atlanta is just a city within the 285, the highway 285. Atlanta, the city of Atlanta. Then you got the suburbs and the outskirts. You got Decatur. Decatur, where is greater? You got Lithonia, Decatur. You got Evans. I'm saying Evans. Jonesboro, Alpharetta, Marietta, Buckhead, Bankhead. But some of those places are in the city limits, though, too. Last question. Then we have DM says, are there English translated books by Mboli? His 2010 work is being worked on as we speak. So that English translation should come out by the end of the year. The new book that he published, the brand new book, he said that that there will be an English version coming, but he didn't say when on that. All right, he didn't say when. So to answer your question, as of right now, there's not a full published English version, but like I said, there's one being worked on for his first work, 2010 work. All right, hopefully that'll be ready by the end of the year, so that nobody have an excuse, because I know the French is definitely a blocker for people. But I'm gonna say, Shemenhotep, maybe can you have any last things to say?
Just Duao, thank you for joining this session with us today. And yeah, so see you guys on the next one.
All right. Next one being maybe Sunday, maybe tomorrow. I know some other people will go live and stuff. All right, but I'm gonna say peace. I'm gonna end. I usually have an intro and outro, but this time we're just gonna end it, and I'm gonna